Bryson DeChambeau left a practice round with Bubba Watson at exactly 2 p.m. When reporters asked where he was headed, he gave them 2 words: big meeting. Nobody knew yet how accurate that phrase would turn out to be. What followed was a nearly 3-hour sequence of closed-door meetings at Bedminster, involving 14 team captains, full rosters, general managers, and LIV Golf CEO Scott O'Neill. By the time the doors opened again, almost everyone who walked out had the same response: no comment. The silence itself became the story. The first session ran for roughly 40 minutes. It included the team captains and Scott O'Neill, meeting inside the clubhouse. Reporting on exactly who was in that room varied. Front Office Sports and Golf.com gave differing counts of the number of teams and captains present. That discrepancy matters, not because it changes the outcome, but because it shows how little verified information was allowed to leave that room in the first place. In a league built around 14 franchises, each with its own captain, general manager, and roster, even a basic headcount becoming unclear signals how tightly the flow of information was controlled that day. The second session lasted somewhere between 15 and 20 minutes and moved from the clubhouse to the locker room. This time, full rosters and general managers joined the conversation. Scott O'Neill made a brief appearance in front of the press during this window, but he did not take questions. He appeared, and then he left. The third session is the one that changes the shape of this story. It ran more than 30 minutes, and by this point, the executives were gone. It was players only. And the person who ran that final session was not an executive, not a commissioner, not Scott O'Neill. It was Bryson DeChambeau. A professional golfer led the internal conversation about the survival of a league backed by more than $5 billion in investment. That is the pivot point of the entire day. In most professional sports leagues, internal financial and structural discussions of this scale are handled by ownership groups, commissioners, or league executives, not by an active competitor. The fact that executives left the room before the most substantial portion of the conversation took place, handing control to a player, is itself an unusual structural detail worth noting on its own. At 3:45 p.m., the doors opened. What came out was a wall of no comment. Ernie Els had nothing to say. Lee Westwood had nothing to say. Among those who declined to comment were Kim, McDowell, Peters, Watson, and DeChambeau himself. Herbert made a joke about the tour rather than answering directly. Paul Casey, when asked what happened, redirected the conversation entirely, bringing up the 1999 Walker Cup instead of addressing the meeting he had just left. 4 people did talk, in varying degrees of usefulness. Thomas Detry, captain of 4 aces, gave the line that will likely define how this meeting is remembered. Asked what was discussed, he said, "No updates, just positive information." It is a sentence that says nothing while sounding like it says something, and it spread quickly for exactly that reason. Bio Hun, the captain of Torque, also referred to in some reports by the team's affiliation with the Korean Golf Club, offered a little more texture, saying that the vibe was good and that no conflict broke out during the meeting. Abraham Answer, also with Torque, indicated that part of the session involved a review of a business plan. His quote was measured, "I think they're giving us as much as they can." That is not an endorsement. It is not a condemnation either. It is a captain describing an organization that appears to be working within limits it did not choose. Richard Bland, the 53-year-old captain of Cleeks and one of the more senior figures in the room, gave the most substantive comments of the day. He said, "We're trying to do it as a group, but we're individuals as well." He also referenced a timeline, describing a window of 2 to 3 weeks before certain matters would be resolved. And he added a specific phrase that deserves attention: "Everything needs to be fully signed off." That phrase implies documents exist. It implies there is something concrete on paper, something that has been drafted but not yet executed. That is an interpretation, not a confirmed fact. Nobody in the room described what it refers to, and Bland did not elaborate further. But the phrase itself, delivered by one of the tour's most experienced captains, is the closest thing to hard information that came out of Bedminster on that day. Bland's age and tenure on tour give his comments a different weight than those of younger captains. He has been through prior organizational shifts in professional golf, including the sport's move toward team-based formats, and his choice of words appears deliberate rather than accidental. While the meeting itself remains mostly a locked room of speculation, one specific event outside of it gives the story its clearest measurable stakes: the Michigan Team Championship. This event is scheduled for August 27 through 30, at the Cardinal in Plymouth, Michigan, carrying a prize purse of $40 million. On paper, it is one of the largest events remaining on LIV's calendar for the year. In practice, mounting evidence suggests it may not happen at all. As of the reporting available, there are no grandstands built at the venue. There is no infrastructure in place for an event of this scale, despite the tournament being roughly 3 weeks away at the time of the Bedminster meeting. Contractors who had been engaged to build out the site have reportedly had their travel cancelled, and some have gone unpaid for months. A prize purse of $40 million is among the larger individual event payouts in professional golf this year, which makes the absence of basic infrastructure this close to the event date a significant logistical warning sign rather than a minor scheduling delay. The Wall Street Journal, Front Office Sports, and The Athletic have all reported on the shaky status of the Michigan event, though The Athletic's reporting included a notable point of nuance, that no decision had been made regarding the tournament's cancellation as of the time of that report. That detail matters. It means the tournament is not confirmed dead. It means the absence of infrastructure and the absence of a formal cancellation are currently sitting side by side, unresolved. Against that backdrop, Cameron Smith told reporters players should prepare as though it's going ahead. That statement, paired against contractors going unpaid and a construction site with no grandstands 3 weeks out, creates a tension the league has not addressed directly. One theory currently circulating to explain what might happen instead of Michigan involves a possible merger or consolidation around an event in Indianapolis. This remains a theory. It has not been confirmed by LIV Golf, by any team, or by any of the captains who spoke after Tuesday's meeting. To understand why a $40 million tournament is in this position, it helps to look at how LIV Golf arrived at this point over the past several months. In April 2026, PIF, the public investment fund, LIV's primary financial backer, announced it would pull funding after the conclusion of the 2026 season. PIF has invested more than $5 billion into the league since its founding. That announcement set off the current chain of events. In response, LIV has been developing what has been referred to internally as LIV 2.0, a restructuring pitch aimed at raising approximately $250 million in new capital. In the meantime, the league has reportedly been operating on loans to sustain its current obligations. A raise target of $250 million is a fraction of the more than $5 billion PIF has already committed to the league, which underscores how significant a reduction in scale this restructuring effort represents compared to the league's original funding model. Multiple reports have indicated that layoffs have been discussed internally, and that groundwork for a potential bankruptcy filing has been laid, though no filing has occurred. Separately, the league is dealing with a growing number of lawsuits, including a claim alleging that its team format concept was stolen from another party. Adding to the instability, the Asian Tour, a partner closely tied to LIV's international structure, has reportedly begun moving back toward alignment with the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour. This shift reportedly caught Scott O'Neill off guard, according to reporting on the matter, suggesting it was not a coordinated or anticipated development from LIV's own leadership. There has also been a dispute with Moby, the league's media partner, over terms of their agreement. And a scheduled event in New Orleans has been postponed indefinitely, joining Michigan as another data point suggesting the current LIV calendar is unstable. One counterpoint worth noting: the New York Post reported the possible involvement of a new group of anchor investors interested in LIV Golf's future. This has not been confirmed by the league. It should be treated as one unverified report among the larger picture, not as a resolved fact. Perhaps the most telling detail in this entire situation comes from Scott O'Neill himself, in comments given to Sportico. O'Neill discussed the league's net operating loss carryforwards, a tax mechanism that allows a business to apply previous financial losses against future taxable income, reducing what it owes once it becomes profitable. In plain terms, if a company loses a large amount of money, it can use those losses later to lower its tax bill once it starts making money again. It is a legitimate financial tool used by many companies, especially those in early, unprofitable stages. It is commonly used by startups and capital-intensive ventures across many industries, and by itself does not indicate financial distress. But when a league's own CEO is discussing tax loss carryforwards as one of the selling points of a restructuring pitch, it says something specific about where the business currently stands. A business whose primary product is compelling is sold on the strength of that product. A business being sold partly on the strength of its accumulated losses is being sold on something else entirely, hitting a shot into a different fairway and calling it a good lie. That brings the story back to Bryson DeChambeau, the man who ran the final, most consequential session of Tuesday's meeting. DeChambeau is, by most measures, the most recognizable and most commercially valuable individual asset currently competing in LIV Golf. His YouTube channel and personal media presence have grown into a business of their own, separate from his golf career and separate from LIV as an organization. If the league were to fold or significantly restructure, DeChambeau has an existing platform to fall back on that most of his fellow captains do not. Many of the other captains who declined to comment on Tuesday, including Els, Westwood, Kim, McDowell, Peters, and Watson, do not have a comparable independent media platform of the scale DeChambeau has built, which places their financial exposure to LIV's outcome on different footing than his. That fact raises a direct question about his role in Tuesday's meeting. Was he leading the players-only session because he is personally invested in seeing LIV Golf survive, or because, among everyone in that room, he has the least to lose if it does not? Nobody has answered that question directly, including DeChambeau himself, who declined to comment when reporters approached him after the meeting concluded. 3 specific developments will determine how much of Tuesday's meeting was substance and how much was, in Thomas Detry's words, positive information without updates. The first is the fate of the Michigan Team Championship. Either the $40 million event proceeds as scheduled on August 27, contractors return to finish the site, and grandstands go up in the next 3 weeks, or the tournament is formally cancelled, joining New Orleans on the list of events LIV Golf has failed to deliver in 2026. The second is the 2 to 3 week window referenced by Richard Bland. If something is, in his words, going to be fully signed off, that timeline gives outside observers a specific point to check LIV's public statements against actual, verifiable outcomes, whether that involves new investment, a restructuring agreement, or something else entirely. The third is Scott O'Neill's scheduled press conference on Wednesday at 10 a.m. That appearance will be the first time O'Neill faces direct questions since ducking reporters in the locker room the day before. Whether he offers specific numbers, specific names, and a specific plan, or whether he falls back on the same kind of language used throughout Tuesday's meeting, will tell observers a great deal about where LIV Golf actually stands going into the fall of 2026.